everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number 131. Rachel is not with me today, but I have two other people. We are doing Ben Coomber Radio, first ever three-way show. Don't get any ideas. I know what you're thinking already. That's horrific. Take that thought away from your mind. I am with Will Barton and Gary Turner, and today we're going to talk about depression. Now, depression is something that's come up on the show here and there, and we've never really gone deep into the kind of topic because I'm not really qualified in the area. I have experience with it, I would say in a mild sense in working with clients. I don't have any personal experience with any kind of mental disorders, anxiety, depression, or anything around that topic. So I've never really felt the right to be able to delve into this area. So a few people brought it up. They said, look, it would be really good if we got this kind of content on the show. And obviously I'm really keen to help you in whatever way I can develop your nutritional arsenal. So I went out there, I put the feelers out, and these are the two people that kind of sat on my radar. Will more from a sufferer's perspective, and Gary more from a kind of expert's perspective in dealing with people with these kind of issues. So firstly, Will, hello, welcome to the show.
Hey Ben, how you doing, buddy?
I'm wicked, I am very good. We were talking off air how despite both of us are kind of into fitness and health and nutrition, we're both actually feeling a little bit run down.
Yeah, I've tried the vitamin C and the zinc and magnesium, but it's just not cutting it at the moment. So, you know, I'm doing okay. I'm surviving.
But we're not allowed to be ill because we're fitness professionals and we never get ill. But it happens. I feel a little bit sniffly. My girlfriend's had it for about 2 weeks. So I think she felt it was enough time and that I deserve to have it as well.
Yeah, I think someone in the family passed it on to me, actually. Maybe we need to move to our own little log cabin out of the way.
All right, steady on.
Oh, yeah, we're on a three-way call here, sorry.
Gary, hello, sir.
Hello, Ben, how are you?
Well, as we've established, not 100%.
Yeah, you need to look at your nutrition, I think.
Well, perhaps you can give me a consult after this Skype call and I'll brush up.
Oh, that sounds good.
So let's, tell the listeners who you are. There's a reason I both have you on the show. You both have valuable perspectives to give to this context and the kind of discussion today. Will, give me a little bit of background. Just tell me who you are. Tell me who is Will Barton.
So I'm Will Barton, upbeat, positive, happy guy, always have been, until about around 2009 when kind of had a problem with the first bout of anxiety and slight depression. I'd actually started in the fitness industry about 9 years ago, so it was a couple of years after that. But I wasn't a PT there, I was just a receptionist. And then over in 2011, I was diagnosed with depression and underwent some pretty intense CBT at the Priory, which was really good. And then moving on from there, after making recovery, went fully into PT really after doing a bit of travelling and finding myself, which you've done before, Ben, I think. I've heard on your podcast. And I went, I've had two and a half years of full-time PT running a successful business, really, and really enjoying life and enjoying the studying side of seeing Phil learn his seminars and studying a bit of emotional intelligence and other bits as well. So,
okay, awesome.
Well, the story behind the depression side, though.
Whereabouts do you work right now? You're Manchester-based PT. What, in a kind of mainstream gym?
Yeah, I work out of LA Fitness Brooklands in Sale, Manchester.
Okay, awesome. Gary, bit of background. Give us your story, which I reckon is probably going to be a tad longer than Will's. It sounds like you've been kicking about fitness for a while, sir.
Yeah, I've been in the fitness industry for quite some time. I used to fight in the fight sports. I'm retired now. I used to fight in mixed martial arts. I was there at the inception through to the good old cage rage days of the noughties. Fought on the very earliest shows in the UK, that kind of thing. Basically, I'm a former professional athlete who's picked up 13 world titles across 3 different fight sports. And that's just his career highlights, fought in 26 countries, etc. Now I've got a couple of crazed huskies and I do ultramarathons. Why? Hey, because I can. But the reason why I'm here for work is for my work, which is basically I work as a performance expert in the field of personal training, hypnotherapy. If it's psychosomatic or physiological, I'll see what I can do to work with it. And especially in my hypnotherapy work, I work with an awful lot of depressives. And unfortunately, I found myself working with suicidal depressives at times, which is never a good thing when a suicidal depressive ends up looking to a hypnotherapist rather than a psychologist or psychiatrist. So I've got a wealth of experience in respect to directly working with such clients, but also, as you know, Ben, I'm a wee bit of a geek. I'm constantly studying from biochemistry, physiology, psychology, neurology, nutrition, anything that can help give me the edge to put my clients first. So what you've got with me today is the technical geek with the background and structure to depression, all the way through to the experience of actually working with clients with it. And hopefully I'll bring everything I can to the table today.
I had completely forgotten that you were so well decorated as an athlete. That's incredible. And is that all in what, MMA, kickboxing? You said there was 3 disciplines. Maybe.
Yeah, I've got world titles in sport jiu-jitsu, Thai boxing, and K1 and kickboxing K1. There was no world titles. So I was part of the K1 world circuit, yeah. So I've been around a little bit, 26 countries, fought open for Arnold Schwarzenegger, opened the Arnold Classic 1 year for Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was quite good fun. It's just, the fun thing is I enjoyed my fighting and I got to travel the world doing it, meeting some really amazing people and having great experiences along the way. Titles, to be honest, I don't mean toffee. The experiences mean everything, and I had some good experiences.
Wow, that's a big claim to fame, the old Arnold Schwarzenegger gig.
It's quite good because at one level it lifts me up onto, you mentioned Arnold Schwarzenegger, Arnold Classic and all the rest of it. But on the other side, those that know me and know the fight game realise it's completely unglamorous. It's very rough and ready. The majority of people, especially the professional levels, really get on. We have a right laugh on the circuit together. And yeah, we just kind of do what we do. No one's better than anyone else. No one's deserves more respect than anyone else. We just kind of do what we do and enjoy it with a smile.
Okay, well, it's probably safe to say then you've probably lost a few brain cells of your own, and you're actually trying to replace some of that brain matter.
I didn't have that much to start with. I think you need to have a lack of brain cells to jump in the ring or cage in the first place.
Yeah, it's something I'm shit scared of. I've done MMA with Rachel Guy before, and she laid smack down on me. She owned me.
That's the problem as well. You never quite know who's going to be better. I won more than I lost, but I lost a few as well. I made sure I was tested. Sometimes I was tested, I came through. Other times I tested and I came up very short. But then that's the fight game. You never know who's around the corner.
Nice. Right.
We'll make sure we don't piss you off today, Gary, anyway.
Sportsman, not a scrapper.
I like that. I like it.
That's like rugby players. We're all gentlemen. We just like to beat each other up for 80 minutes when there's an egg rolling around.
You go. Well, here's an example. The Arnold Classic. I'm literally just about to go out and fight Carter Williams, the USA champion. And he shouts, so we're literally about to go to our separate curtains onto this big stage. And Carter shouts out, "Hey, Smiler," which is my fighting nickname. "Are we going to do the usual?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." "Brandy?" He shouts back, "Brandy's good. Winner or loser? Loser buys." And then we went out and battered each other.
Yeah.
We're sort of betting with each other on brandy, that the loser would buy the brandy, just before we go out and show each other the utmost respect by doing our best to beat each other up. And luckily I beat him, so he bought me the brandy that time.
Yeah, God, that's not even a good drink to fight over. Jesus.
I don't know, it's quite nice.
I beg to differ. We could do a brandy right now.
Yeah.
That probably help us out,
Yeah, medicinal purposes.
Yeah.
Right, enough lamenting of our man flu. Let's all man up to Gary's level. Right, we need to talk about the mind, and I suppose Will, we kind of need to start off with your journey, because I think for me to delve into this topic, I had to kind of get someone that's been there on this show, and we had to be able to listen and experience what you went through, because we can talk about mental health and depression and the facets of it, but what's important is we need to link the background, right, of why this might have manifested. So talk to me. You got into the fitness industry, you said about 2 years after you started to suffer with anxiety, and kind of then you got diagnosed with depression. So talk me and Gary through that initial process so far, and go into as much detail as you want.
Right, okay, I'll try and be as clear as possible. So back in around 2009 was the first kind of time I had a bit of a problem with, or realised I had a bit of a problem with anxiety. Just before that, this is 2 years before I actually got diagnosed with depression. But it was I wasn't really sure where I was going with life. I was 20, I think I was about 22 at the time, burning the candle at both ends, doing drugs, going out. Yeah, I was just working on reception at the gym. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life kind of thing. But I wasn't really bothered, I don't think, at the time, until I started to get a bit of a conscience around it. And I think I started to think, I need to start doing something in my life. I'm throwing my life away and burning the candle at both ends. Not really taking control of where I want to go, and I knew I was better than that. So around this time that I started to almost start to have a bit of a conscience around it, I started to have a problem with body dysmorphia. I didn't realise I had the problem at the time. I just started obsessing about different parts of my face that I felt were out of line. That might sound crazy to people that listen to podcasts, maybe not to some of the people that are in the physique side because of bodybuilding, actually, because I've heard problems with the anxiety. That has been a lead on from there. But it kind of really shut me back a bit, and I was starting to have problems feeling a bit distant. So there's a bit of anxiety coming in there. But I didn't go to the doctors. My dad did have a problem with anxiety when he was younger, so he was kind of pointing out to me that, I think you've got a problem with anxiety by what you're saying. What do you want to do about it? And I kind of thought, I don't really want to go to doctors. I'll seek something else out, like maybe some relaxation stuff and that. And I kind of, from there, I kind of went on to, there was someone around the corner from our house that did Reiki, which is like an holistic therapy. So I basically went round, had a session there, and at this point I was mildly depressed, anxious, and I just didn't really know what to do with myself. I knew that my environment and what I was doing leading up to that wasn't too good, and I needed to change it. And straight away after having a session of Reiki, I almost kind of went, whoa, flipping out, that was pretty good. There's something here that can help me get over the way I'm feeling. Now, initially, it did kind of help me, and it was a good support. But I don't think I realised how well I was at the time. So from there, I kind of delved a bit more into the spiritual side of life, and I went on a bit of a journey. And some of the stuff that I was reading into was fine at first. Like I said, it was good support. But it was also very confusing as well when you're not already thinking logically and you're in an emotional state of mind most of the time. Around this time as well, I had a lot of stuff falling down around me with family members. Me and my wife had a lot of family members leaning on us. Felt like I had to help everyone. I felt that's my kind of personality anyway. I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. And I had a lot of things going on. In a time when I was kind of finding myself, I was kind of almost at the same time losing myself. Which sounds like a bit of a paradox, but the spiritual stuff is there to kind of support you and give you comfort. and I needed support at home, and I wasn't really getting that. No problem with everyone around me. It was what was going on at the time. But I kind of got lost in it, really. So from there, I kind of went down a bit of a downward spiral over that 2 years, really, the second part of the year, getting some bad guidance off people around me. Like I said, overthinking, analysing a lot. And I basically got to a point where I started having panic attacks in work and feeling really distant. And I almost was just like, I didn't know what the hell was going on, really. So kind of had to take a step back from there and went to the NHS from there, really. So that's kind of the lead up the 2 years up to it. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, guys, or
There's a lot that you've just given there, which is quite telling. You've kind of hit quite a lot of the classic models of depression, which is always quite good. Hopefully, this might help you understand what happened a little bit better. Firstly, is it okay to just set a few definitions down? Is that okay?
Yeah, no problem at all, mate.
Okay, depression, if you look at ICD-10 or the DSM-5, the diagnostic manuals, as a generalisation, it's a continued low mood. But most people don't understand the difference between an emotion, a feeling and a mood. So if I explain it with anxiety, for example, anxiety is a mood. It's based on the emotion of fear. For example, if a hungry lion came in the room, we'd receive we would see the hungry lion, we receive the stimulus, and it would pass through our brains where we receive the images, we get the thoughts that go along with the images, and we generally realise that a hungry lion in the room may not be a good thing. That will bring on an emotion of fear. Just think of emotion of fear as a little brain spark, a little electrochemical spark whizzing around the limbic system. We don't actually experience that directly. What happens is it sends a signal to our brainstem, fires up the autonomic nervous system, so our cardiorespiratory system will fire up. We get heart and breathing arrhythmia, vascular constriction, deconstriction. Our stomach will start to create those lovely butterflies. As we may pee, we may poop, we may puke. Try saying those three quickly. In other words, we have real physical changes in our body as a result of this emotion. We've got nerve endings around our body. They go back up to our brain, and we interpret those as our feelings. So an emotion is just a response in the brain, brings on real changes in the body, which we interpret as our feelings. So therefore, an emotion is separate to a feeling, and a feeling is separate to emotion. And it works both ways, where an emotion will bring on a feeling, and a feeling can bring on an emotion. The overall experience would be mood. So for anxiety, there'll be some stimulus, something that sets you up, thinking, the fear of the future, the what ifs, the unknowns, the not knowing the rules. What if this happens? What if that happens? Nerves and worry. The self-talk about things you have to do, the self-talk about things you may not have to do. And as you go through the options of what may happen in the future, what if that lion eats me, kind of thing. So that sends off the emotion. Base emotion behind anxiety is fear. Brings on the feelings that we all interpret and we all know so well, all the butterflies, the breathing and heart arrhythmias. Overall experience, that's what a mood is. So depression can be a continued low mood. So the low mood could actually be any number or any combination of negative emotions. Guilt, shame, regret, remorse, embarrassment, sadness, fear, could be disgust, it could be anger. Any number of negative emotions we experience for a long time. That creates a continued low mood. Bang, there you go. You've got the diagnosis of depression. What you've got there as we've gone through it is quite a nice little story of how you started obsessing about your body. So you must recognise the self-talk that you're having there. Can you remember that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So you're probably thinking about, what if I'm, what am I looking like? Am I looking right? Oh, that doesn't look right. All of those kind of self-talk.
Yeah, I think I've learned from, obviously, after I've overcome it and done my own study on my own self-development, it's a lot of to do with perfectionist traits and my personality, and I'm quite obsessive, which can drive me forward, and my emotion can drive me at stuff, but it can also overrule me, and like I was back then in two spells. Body dysmorphia was almost like the offset of my anxiety, which was quite weird at the time because I didn't know what anxiety was then. I know what it is now. I know what it feels like. Whereas then I was like, why the hell am I obsessing about the hairs on my ears or something like that?
Yeah. But the other thing is, we get when we're born, for example, this is a bit of a generalisation, but when we're born, we've got the genetic capabilities to experience fear, anger, disgust and sadness, surprise and joy. And then we learn more emotions as we develop. For example, we learn guilt by the age of about 5 and contempt by the age of 7 or 8. But when we're born, if you notice I said we've got fear, anger, disgust and sadness. I described those 4 first. Then I said surprise and then I said joy. The reason being is that negative emotions are there to keep us alive, so we pay attention to them. So fear, for example, removes you from a situation that may harm you. Anger protects your rules so you can stay alive. Hey, that's my shelter, that's my food. You need those to stay alive. Disgust is generally an instant reaction. Say you're eating a berry, nature's quite kind and makes things that may kill us taste disgusting, so we'll spit it out before we ingest it. Sadness will stop us from doing things that give us that bad feeling. Then we've got surprise, which could be good or bad. And then I put joy at the end, because joy won't kill you, it'll just make you feel better. That's why Will, you can have 100 things on a sheet of paper, 99 of which say, Will, you're great, you're awesome, you give joy feelings to all those around you. And one that says, Will, you're, let's use the language, shit.
Yeah.
You'd ignore the 99 good ones and concentrate on the one that may kill you. One that says that, the negative. We're hardwired to concentrate on the negative. And people who fall into suppression tend to get caught in a cycle where they don't rationally think of the negatives. And as such, they start to overcome and overwhelm, and you get caught into that negative spiral where one negative feeds off another negative, and then you end up in that depressed state, unsure of how to find your way out. How does that sound to you?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I found and what I realised when I got perspective with my therapist on that 2 years, I went from one high of doing narcotic drugs and enjoying myself partying. Then I went kind of straight to a low, and then I kind of went to Reiki, had this energy healing, and went, whoa, bloody hell, that's like a natural high, that. So then I almost chased another high of feeling good, feeling like I was almost trying to be positive too much and I wasn't being logical about it, if that makes sense, and I was letting my emotion drive me.
That's right. But that's what emotion does. Negative emotions move you away from something. Positive emotions will pull you towards something. So you move away from things that may harm you and move towards things that will make you feel good. If you think of Reiki, even if you don't believe in the energy side of Reiki, what you're doing is you're relaxing. When your body's relaxed, your body relaxes, and you can't hold on to negative emotion if your body's nice and relaxed. Yeah. Therefore, you get released from the negativity. Plus, you're getting the therapeutic relationship. You're getting that interaction with the person as well. So Reiki can have the benefit with depressive people, even if you don't believe in the energy side, purely on the physiological side as well. So that's why you start to chase the things that make you feel good, to help you and move away from the things that make you feel bad.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm definitely not saying that Reiki hasn't got its place, as a therapy, because it definitely has as a relaxing state. Something I think I was looking at it as something that was going to sort me out, and I think that was part of the problem, because the offset of that was, God, this is because I'm quite a curious kind of guy. I think it all comes down to your personality. I was kind of like, right, well, what else is there about life? Like, what is this? And I was grabbing at other things that were deeper and more confusing, and it was just the offset. But in general, it was a great way to relax and just kind of balance my mood when I needed to be in more of a calmer state, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that Reiki can definitely deliver, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So Gary, I just want to clarify, because what we're talking about now, I would say it's very common in the fitness industry. We're looking at dealing with a lot of people that do have body dysmorphia. Dysmorphia, that's the one. And, look at their body in a negative way and probably spend a lot of their day having some kind of anxiety over this. Now, having that visual emotion to part of your body is one thing, but how does this anxiety, I suppose both mentally and physiologically, how does it build? How does it manifest in something that then becomes a problem?
It's because we are, the more you focus on the negative, the more it feeds back in on itself. So, for example, you see your body, you think, oh, I'm looking a bit fat. What if people think I look, or if people think I look fat, that'll bring on the emotion of fear, mild fear coming in. We'll start bringing on the feelings associated with that fear, the feelings associated with anxiety. That goes, oh, that feels bad. And it starts to support then the emotion. And you get this little cycle between your cognition, the emotion and feelings that cycle you down. And depending on how you've learned to be the person you are, you may be able to just snap out of it straight away. Other people, it may start to consume them. Hebb's law is the classic rule of neurology. Neurons that fire together wire together. So the more times your neurons fire, the easier it is for you to go back to that old way of being. So it just starts to consume you. You start to carry out avoidance behaviour. You may stop going to places where you feel that way. That's how people can become hermits at the end of the day, just to avoid going out and basically just avoid the bad feeling. Sure.
Okay, well, we'll talk about ways to kind of, I suppose, almost break that cycle a little bit later, because I want to delve a little bit more into Will's story now before we kind of progress the conversation in a different direction. So, Will, we've kind of talked about how you got there. There was then a point where you went to the GP, you got a diagnosis. What happened when you went to the GP for the diagnosis? What kind of testing did they do to kind of identify that? And then what was the path afterwards from going to the Priory and your rehab process?
Right, and so at first when I went to NHS after I had a few panic attacks at work, didn't take a step back from work, I went to the NHS, filled out, get like a form that you fill out to see where you're up to, like your anxiety, depression. So you got like a questionnaire, and from that it came back that I had acute anxiety. So I wasn't actually showing signs that I was depressed at this point. I was having a lot of anxiety, so it was probably, well, as we find out, it was kind of in the process of developing at the time. The doctor did suggest medication. She talked about CBT if it was to get any worse. I kind of went away and ended up going back. I had denied the medication actually at the time, and I'd asked about CBT. She said it was going to be about a 6-month waiting list, which was ridiculous, and it's still something that I think needs to be sorted within the NHS. I think they're actually working on. So from there, at this point when I'd gone back, I'd had to take a step back from where I was feeling pretty depressed. So I still didn't get any medication from them there. I then got a referral straight to the Priory. At this point, I wasn't in work. My head was truly up my arse. Suicidal thoughts. Felt like I had nothing to give in life. Felt like giving up. There's not much of a light going on there, apart from the support around you at the time with family, and obviously the therapy that you're hoping to get pretty soon. So obviously when I got to the Priory, I saw one of the psychiatrists there that diagnosed me. He was the first person to actually point out that I had body dysmorphia. Like, the doctor couldn't highlight that, but when I talked to my symptoms, he said you've got dysmorphobia, which is an offset of anxiety. And then he talked about a bit around depression. Now, he offered me medication and said that CBT could be sorted in about 2 weeks. I still turned down the medication. I was kind of in that whole cycle of don't need medication. I was a bit arrogant about it, but it was mainly through what I was fed, through the spiritual stuff I've been reading and what you hear in the media about, that, it changes you, it messes your chemical balance in your brain. And so I denied it, went back home and started to arrange CBT with one of the therapists there. And And I pretty much went back about 2 weeks later to the psychiatrist before the CBT and said, just give me whatever you got because I need to balance myself out here. Like, my head is just absolutely everywhere. Could not think logically at all. Firing off all over the place. It's a pretty dark place, and it's hard to explain in words what it's like, really, when you're at that state. I mean, I was at a state where I couldn't even receive CBT when I'd gone to that second visit. I had to wait for it to get the medication in my system. I let myself balance out, basically, at home. I mean, he was even thinking about having me as an inpatient, but we didn't really have the money for that. So luckily, I had some support at home to kind of balance out until I was all right for CBT. And I think that one of the main problems that made it worse for myself from when I went to the psychiatrist or NHS is I wasn't accepting what I was going through and what was going on. I was like, I'm Will, I'm the positive guy. Everyone knows me as the happy-go-lucky guy, upbeat guy. And that whole pressure and that whole thing was just like, it was killing me, really. I was my own worst enemy at this point. Apart from the fact I wasn't logical anyway. But when I decided that I actually had a bit of a kind of awareness that I need to accept this, or there's no way of me starting to get sorted. I wanted to get sorted, but I still wasn't accepted. When I started to accept it, I started to lower my anxiety. I stopped thinking about the guy I wasn't who I'd become and stuff like that. And I kind of entered a more balanced state, so I was ready to undergo CBT from there. Do you want me to go into the CBT, or do you want to elaborate on that, Gary?
Yeah, if I could jump in now, there's 3 points that I'd like to make on this. The first thing is suicidal thoughts. It's part of your personality that's looking out for you. Basically, when someone's suicidal, generally they're looking for a way out of the pain. They can't find a way out of the pain, therefore it's best not to feel anything. It's a very serious state, and if anyone knows anyone that's getting in that way, please urge them to seek help. But do so in a way that gives them hope. For example, I know that you can't see a way out of it yet, but let's find a way, that kind of thing. And never tell someone who's suicidal that you understand, because no one ever will apart from that person. It's a way that appears to shut people off quite nicely at a time when they actually need your help. So if someone that you know is starting to, or you suspect is starting to have suicidal tendencies, get them to seek help. Start to instill a sense of hope in there. Be there for them. Be upbeat. Don't join them in their depression. They can come and join you in a happier place. And just guide them to have help. The suicidal thoughts they're having are trying to look out for them. They just haven't found the right way yet. So you can redirect those thoughts for getting the appropriate help for it. But yeah, do take it seriously. You also...
I think that's a really, really good point. I mean, the one reason why I wanted to come on and speak openly about this is to kind of just raise a bit of an awareness, because the amount of things that you see now, people taking their own lives. I've heard of people around our area on the news, some celebrities and stuff. It's just to be a bit more open about it, really, just create awareness that, it's all right, that you can have been in that state and you can be where I am now. It's not the end of the world. But you've got to speak out. You cannot suffer in silence about it. And that's what a lot of guys especially are doing. Nowadays, why the suicidal rate in men is at quite a high, really, because they don't want that kind of macho side to kind of... that holds them back, that whole ego. I can't talk out about how I'm really feeling and stuff like that. And
definitely.
You need to realise that you've got to express how you feel. It's your life, it's the life of all the people around you, and it's important. So that's a really good point that I think you've got out
Cool. Let's hope people take note of that. I mean, I do a lot of work with soldiers. I'm lucky that a lot of my training, I'm civilian, but a lot of my training's come through the Army as a result. And the work I do with the Army, I've got a lot of good contacts. A lot of soldiers come to see me rather than go through the Army system. Reason being is that in certain circles in the Army, post-traumatic stress disorder and mental health, it seems like a black mark on the record. Yet, to be honest, knowing it from the sort of the geek side of it, the structural side of it, it's no different to a pulled hamstring. In other words, with the right attention and the right training, people can get through it nicely. They just don't see it yet. The soldiers don't come to see me for therapy. They come to see me for psychological skills training. So there's another little angle on it. So it happens to us all. I had a guy that was awarded the, I won't say which one, because a person that was rewarded for his gallantry on the field of battle, I shall say, who came and he saw me, and he'd done the most amazing heroism on the field, and yet he was in for PTSD.
Yeah.
So he's the guy that I wish that I could have one a millionth of the heroism that he's got inside him, yet he came down with PTSD. So all mental health, there's a stigma around it. There shouldn't be. It's no different to a pulled hamstring.
Yeah.
Right attention, it can be recovered from. So hopefully that will give people some hope to go and seek some help. And of course, you sought help and you had support of your family and friends, which is a massive thing.
Yes,
it's something I've got to make a note of. One of the 3 points I want to make note of that picked up that you had the right support around you, and that's important. If a friend of yours is not being not feeling too well lately, we should say, give them some support. Don't try and understand, because you never will, but be there for them. Don't shy away from it. Encourage them to be happy, basically. Encourage them to seek help if needed, and just let them know that it's perfectly normal, and everyone at some time or other will go through it. Seek that help. And it's great that you had your family and friends support there, because that's important, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, massively, mate.
The last point I'd like to make is on medication.
Yeah.
You mentioned the terrible the two words that don't really go together, chemical imbalance. Even the American Psychiatric Society or Association came out 3 years ago to say that there's no evidence of there being a chemical imbalance in the brain. It is a metaphor that we tell clients to make it easier. So here's a thought. There may not be anything at all wrong with your brain.
Yeah.
It may just be how you've learned to be that way.
Yeah.
As such, what I want to do by saying that is perhaps you can have more hope for getting better quicker. There may not be a physical, structural side to depression. It may just be you've learned to be that way, and therefore you can learn to be different. And hopefully that can free people up a little bit. Now, saying that, medication most definitely has its place, and I really like the description that you gave when you went into such a dark state that you couldn't even respond to CBT. You needed the medication to help you, and that's the perfect time for medication to be used. Basically, if you're constantly obsessing and thinking about all the negatives, you're not going to think of the positives. You're not going to be able to pay attention to what the therapist will want you to do. You're not going to be able to follow the interventions because you'll be lost in your own world of depression. Your mind will be thinking too much. You need to quieten it down. There's various methods of doing that. For example, when I work with a depressed person or a seriously anxious person, first thing I do is calm them down, so they get to a stage I can actually work with them. Medication is one way of doing it. It's not the only way, but you will use it, what I believe, the right way to be, which is to control and to manage the worsening situation to enable you to be worked with while you work on the root cause. So there's something for people to research. Just have a look at the chemical imbalance. It's a metaphor.
Yeah.
The SSRIs and things like that, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, the more popular depressives, they do have an efficacy, but it's not necessarily down to a chemical imbalance. There's no evidence behind that. So don't think there's something wrong, it's structural. Just think it's how you've learned to be that way, and therefore that can free you up to learn to be different, perhaps easier.
I think that on the, on the other side, it is given out far too fast. And so I think it should be really a last resort. I mean, don't try and get to the point where I was at, but if you are really struggling to manage it, and then it might be an intervention that might help balance you out a bit. But don't, at the first sign of going there, just feeling a bit anxious and the doctor saying, yeah, go on, bang some whatever down you. So it's kind of a two-way thing, isn't it? I felt I used it at the right time. I'd made the bloody journey quite hard from when I got offered it. So I probably left it a bit too long. But at the same time, I'd say sometimes people take it too early, and sometimes people probably take it too late. But it is definitely the time to use it when it's later on. And you need to get the therapy in there, because that's ultimately what's going to sort you out.
For sure, and you definitely did it the right way, where it was managing the cause, managing the symptoms, so you could work on the cause. It was really good to hear actually that you were using it in the right way. Although perhaps you waited a little bit too long before you took it. Yeah. But retrospect's a lovely thing, and it also shows that everyone's an individual. Will is Will, I'm me, Ben's Ben, and we're all affected in different ways by different things.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Gary, we've just talked about medication. You as a practitioner, would you tend to work with a GP in terms of like a referral aspect to say, right, go and get the meds, I think that's kind of what you need right now, and then, like in Will's case, in 2 or 3 weeks, come back to me and then let's work together?
I've never had to do it in that way. However, what I'd always say is always take the advice of a licensed medical practitioner over anyone, because they're the guys that are licensed. I don't diagnose. I work with a client in front of me. They come in thinking one way, I help them think another way. It's as simple as that. Okay. So I work and piggyback quite often on the work of medical practitioners and work in conjunction, work in liaison, work in referral too, and such like. But I've never had in a session had to refer anyone to go and get medication, because I'm lucky that I've had good mentors, and there's various things that you can do to reduce that anxiety and get a client to a state where you can actually work with them. And I actually use humour quite a lot. There was once that a suicidal depressive who had been sectioned came in to see me. And he came in with a psychiatrist. 10 minutes later, a blue fairy off my mantelpiece was flying around the room. And every time this fella had a suicidal thought, she'd flash her boobs or pull a moonie. He roared with laughter. Now, you think, what's the point behind that? Well, the first point is, it took 10 minutes without medication to show this person that just by using the power of his imagination, he doesn't have to be depressed. Because when it's roaring with laughter, he wasn't depressed, definitely not suicidally depressed. Also, he started to look for everything that was making him feel suicidal, every depressive thought. And what was happening was he was then roaring with laughter. It was emotionally re-imprinting that thing that caused him a problem in the past. So it's actually quite a clever move, and one that I adapted and swiped off one of my leading peers, Andy Austin. Someone I picked up on one of his products, one of his books, and I thought, hey, now's the right time to use it. So I use humour quite a lot of the time to help lift people out of depression, lift them into a more positive mindset in a way that I can actually work with them. That was a radical example that I told you, but it shows you that, in 10 minutes, someone who's suicidally depressed had been sectioned, was roaring with laughter. Yeah. With the right approach, it is possible to get that change. That wasn't the solution. There was a lot more work needed. I've got to emphasise that. Sure. But it was a very nice start.
But that's fascinating to show not how simple the trigger can be, but it's just a lot of the time a shift in the mentality. Now, I need to kind of take what we're talking about here to a level where we can try and help a good group of people listening to this podcast right now. So we've talked about, people that are in, we'll say, quite an anxious state, feeling quite depressed, have a low mood, and perhaps these people do need to go straight to a good practitioner and say, look, I need help, I need you to guide me through this, I need someone to talk to. Now there's going to be a group of people under that, and I suppose for the simplicity of this conversation, we'll call them as maybe mildly depressed or kind of have a low mood on a consistent basis. Now, what I want to do is, Gary, with your help, unravel some kind of simple strategies that people can start to look to do in their lifestyle around trying to almost jump out of a mildly depressive state. Because when I look at Will's journey, I look at a lack of life direction, a lack of self-confidence, a lack of emotional unhappiness, body dysmorphia, anxiety about situations and his own body. Now, there's obviously those 5 points that I just picked up on. I think there's maybe some really simple things that people can think about in their lifestyle that's going to really help them improve the way they feel about their life.
Definitely, you've just hit on. It's actually quite good. I like the way that you've listened, not just to what Will was saying, but the thought structure and everything behind it as well. Nice work, Ben. I like that. That's probably why you're so good with your clients. But there's lots of things that you can do. The first thing is you can work on the body. You can change the way that your feelings are in the body. For example, all negative emotions will tense you up and close you off. It's there for your protection. That's what part of stress is. That's what physical stress is. So when you have a negative emotion, your body will naturally tense and close off. So you're driving your car with a handbrake on. You're trying to move through life, but you're burning a lot of fuel, working against yourself. Bits will start falling off, and it won't be as effective as it could be. As a result, you can start to get physical stress, because your body's getting tired, it's broken down, your immune system starts getting suppressed as well. Also, in the mind, you can get mental stress because, of course, all the nerves, the worries, all the self-talk and everything that go along with all of this, that's making your mind work overtime. So you can quieten that as well. So can I quickly give you a few quick interventions that just may help people just understand themselves a little bit better? Is that okay?
This is perfect, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, the first thing is all negative emotions, and in particular, the overall experience of anxiety, comes with something called arrhythmia. Arrhythmia is irregular heartbeat, it's irregular breathing. I'm trying desperately not to sound like a certain disgraced Australian, but it kind of sounds a bit like Rolf Harris. You get the stuttered breathing, the stuttered heartbeats. So the first thing we can do is we can change that. Steve Murray, a consultant cardiologist friend of mine, is an expert in arrhythmias, and working with him and from what he was teaching us at the National Hypnotism Conference, I've got this little system of which part of it was actually, I discovered, was already on a TED talk somewhere. Basically, if you breathe regularly, when you get arrhythmia, if you breathe regularly, it's the same distance in to same distance out, same time in to same time out, like you're breathing to a metronome, breathing with rhythm. Regularize your breathing. And as you're doing that, breathe smoothly. So the smooth breath in to the smooth breath out while you're regularizing your breathing. At the same time, just imagine breathing from the center of your chest or even lower. So you breathe regularly, you breathe smoothly from the centre of your chest or even lower. And then take your focus onto the heart. You've got 12 things that you can do to control your breathing, of which those 4 quite nicely get rid of arrhythmia. So breathing regularly, breathing smoothly, centre of the chest or lower, and focusing on the heart. All of that, 30 seconds, minute, 2 minutes, will reverse your arrhythmia. As such, you collapse the feelings. If you collapse the feelings, there's nothing going back to your mind, which means the emotion starts to collapse, which stops the feeling starting in the first place. So you can collapse it that way. It's a great way of stopping someone who's having a panic attack from having that panic. Focus their attention, get them to look in your eyes, then get to breathe regularly, breathe smoothly, central chest or lower, focus on the heart. And it will just reverse your arrhythmia, and it collapses the anxiety and it collapses the panic. You can think of it having a similar effect to maybe the beta blockers that the doctors will give you. But of course, we work with physiology rather than chemicals.
Yeah, that's another thing that they fire out far too fast.
It's got its place, but again, it can, beta blockers are shown to have really good efficiency with working with anxiety if they then expose you to things that, the beta blockers keep you nice and calm, and then they expose you to the things that would make you anxious, and then you're collapsing. You get used to the new stimulus response of having that experience but being calm, rather than having that experience of panic. But they don't do that enough. They just generally dish them out to calm people down. So the arrhythmia is one thing, but then to quieten the mind, all the self-talk that's running on the mind, a really quick way of doing that is to put the tongue hard on the roof of your mouth. When you do that, it will generally stop or reduce the self-talk. It will reduce the chattering monkeys going on in your mind. Again, it's Hebb's law. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Motor cortex, the lips, the tongue, the jaw, the throat, the palate is right next to Broca's and Wernicke's area, speech and language comprehension. And basically, it all needs to fire together as one. Tongue on the roof of the mouth, we stop the micro movements, and it will quieten or even deaden the self-talk, help quieten the mind. So that's another way of quietening the mind. And then, as you know, I'm a hypnotist. One of their classic hypnosis inductions will get you to stare at a flickering flame, or to stare at the watch as it swings back and forth, or get you to stare at one point in space. If you fixate and stare at one spot, it will quieten your mind, it will quieten your thoughts. Your eyes will need to move to help you accessing those thoughts. So with your eyes focused on one point, again, that will quieten, that will suppress the thoughts in your head. So quite quickly, you've got three ways of arresting the state, the depressed state, the anxious state, the negative state. Breathe regularly, breathe smoothly, from the centre of your chest or lower while focused on the heart. Within a couple of minutes, that will collapse the arrhythmia and the emotion will dissipate. You can put your tongue on the roof of the mouth, that will quieten or deaden the self-talk, or you can fixate on a spot. Again, that can quieten those thoughts in your head. But the key thing to do is just imagine being different. Imagine thinking, acting, behaving how you want to do. Reality is all around us, but how we move through that reality, how we behave in it, that's just our imagined version of it. So if you imagine being happy, if you imagine being positive, if you imagine good things happening, then you'll move through your reality in a happier state. Just imagine being the person you want to be. Completely imagine it in every context. Imagine it continuously. So much so with every beat of your heart, breath that you take, steps that you make, you're just that person. And imagine it happening automatically. So much so nothing you do, say, think or otherwise will change it. Just imagine being that person now. And again, just by using the imagination, you can change the thought structure. And to be honest, that's the gist of what a hypnotherapist will do. That's what a hypnotist will do. It will guide the imagination so much it becomes your reality. And if your reality is a better place, hey, that's a good thing. So just imagine being different now. There's some ideas for you.
Yeah. It's funny that you talk about hypnotherapy and that, because obviously hypnotherapy isn't what I actually went through to overcome my depression and that. But moving forward, and as I've kind of formed a passion in kind of wanting to help people more from a life coach point of view, or helping people with anxiety and depression, you'd think I'd kind of jump at going, I'm going to go and study CBT then. I mean, the thing that's helped me when as I've come over, and the reason I think I've not relapsed is mainly because I've kind of took time, and I've become a bit of a geek myself, but you don't have to become a geek. But I've studied emotional intelligence, neuroscience, human behaviour, and I'm doing certification NLP and hypnosis later in the year, because I am seeing the way that can help, never mind the CBT, especially with somebody, never mind someone who's in a really low state, but like you said, Ben, can you give some options for anyone who's mildly depressed? So if I was to put anything out there to anyone who is either going through it or has gone through it and doesn't want to go through it again, I think trying to study yourself a little bit, a bit of emotional intelligence, and learn about yourself and knowing yourself, what your triggers are a bit, how to rein yourself in if you feel you're running it away with yourself, staying in a balanced but positive state and not trying to fluctuate two-way up or down is really important. Has helped me a lot moving forward. So yeah.
That's a great message. That's a brilliant message, because knowledge is power. In fact, in my sessions, a great deal of the session is helping people understand themselves, how they've learned to be that way, how they can learn to be different, so they can self-apply and continue the work. It's a massive thing. Yeah, study yourself, understand how you are the way that you are. 2 books that can help on that side. Rita Carter has got a book called Mapping the Mind, which is pretty good. That's a 2011 latest edition. And back in 2009, so not too out of date, is John Ratty, A User's Guide to the Brain. Both are very accessible books that will help everybody understand themselves a lot better. So there's a couple of tips to help people study as well and get on that study learning. And I've got to say, Will, that's perfect advice that you're giving there. I really, really do subscribe to what you're saying.
Yeah, cool. We're on the same page, buddy, I think.
Looks that way.
Well, one thing I wanted to pick up on, and we haven't really quite talked about it. We've talked about being introspective about who you are and the thoughts that you have. But I think one of the points I raised about your kind of life direction, I think is really important. And I think you've either got to go 2 ways about tackling your life direction, in that if you're unsure where your life is going, for me, you need to sit down and really work out what your passion is and what makes you tick, and then work out a plan of how you're going to progress there, and embrace the fact that it will be a journey. It won't be something that happens next week, next month, or probably even 6 months. There needs to be a plan of action that slowly takes you there. And then the other side of it is that, and I find this especially with people that are young, I've talked to a lot of people online that have come to me and sort of said, I don't really know what I'm doing, I'm thinking of getting into fitness, or I'm a PT, but I'm not really inspired by it, is also to take the pressure off yourself to know what you want to do. Because I think when you're younger and you're going through school and your kind of parents are talking about where you want to go and the courses that you should take, you can almost freak out a bit in the fact that you're like, I just don't know, I'm not sure. And that's okay as well. It's not a problem. Just go and get a job that's all right, and just be open to your life direction. Be open that something is going to show its path to you, that a passion will develop. And aside from that, at the same time, just enjoy your life. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more, Ben. I mean, even my passion has almost come off one of my worst experiences, which is quite crazy, but I think when you find that kind of, when you're open to a direction and just allow yourself to flow with life and going into whichever job feels kind of right at the time, just allow your life to map out. It kind of, you find yourself attracting yourself into that kind of life really, or opening doors towards the way that you want to go, and that ultimately makes you feel a lot better within yourself anyway.
Yeah, I love Ben's words there. I love your take on it as well, Will. And to add to it, what I've done, and possibly the reason why I've been lucky that I've been quite stable all the time. I've had my moments, we all do, but I've been quite stable. So I surround myself with people who are who I'd like to be like, go-getters, people who are really knowledgeable in subjects. I sort out good mentors. I'm mixed with generally positive people. If you mix with generally positive people in a positive environment, generally you're going to be happier anyway, which also helps, of course.
Yeah.
Before we close up this show, because we've already been on this for an hour, I just wanted to cover one last thing, because I'm really interested, because I think this is going to help a lot of people. Will, when you were going through all of this, body dysmorphia was one of the key issues. You know, you were micro-analytical in how you looked at your physique. Now, I'm assuming this has changed somewhat. What processes, or what do you think helped you view your body differently, and I suppose ultimately become more relaxed with yourself and how you look and how you feel about how you look?
It's quite a tough one, really, because when you're in the fitness industry and you're into your physique and you're into yourself, but not in a kind of big-headed way, but you want to look and feel good, so it's kind of one of your high values. So you kind of, everything that you're doing, that is, you're kind of aiming towards making yourself look and feel better. And relieving the pressure of trying to be perfect was a massive kind of turning point for me. And actually tackling, not actually, I shouldn't focus on my ears and stuff, or, oh God, something's out of place and stuff like that, when I was at a heightened state of anxiety, but actually focusing on moving myself away from putting pressure on myself in general with the gym. I need to do this, count this, and being too habitual about stuff was probably the main thing, really. The strategies and ways I kind of did that, I kind of formed naturally from learning about myself, really. And learning about my personality and learning that it's okay just to be you and not, you don't have to be perfect. Nothing is perfect. It's just perfect the way it is, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of the way I kind of tackled it. Is more removing the pressure and tackling my perfectionism and going for a good standard, like a high standard, but not a perfect kind of standard. And that then changes your perception of what you then see physically or mentally, etc. So I hope that helps.
I love that, Will. I really do. I tell a lot of my clients that it's okay to be happy with yourself now whilst working to be better.
Yeah.
Because no one's ever going to be perfect. They'll always find something. Oh no, I've got to do this. I've got to do that. Even the top fitness models are going to be sort of nitpicking their own bodies. So it's nice to actually be okay with yourself, be okay with where you are now, be happy with yourself now, whilst still working to be better. And that kind of matches with what you said, I think, Will.
Yeah, the whole thing with body dysmorphia, from what I've kind of studied over, that it's not everybody kind of has it. It's a certain type of personality that is the offset of the anxiety. Like other people are anxious about the heart beating irregularly, and I think one of mine, apart from being a personality, is when I've got a little bit of alopecia that I've had since I was a kid, and I think from when I was younger, it kind of had a bit of an effect. So I was always, from a youngster, bothered about my appearance, underliningly, not even with an awareness. So as you kind of evolve and you grow and you go into like the fitness industry, I guess, then you're then working on your body again. And that underlining thing that I probably hadn't broken from when I was younger has kind of maybe shown itself as body dysmorphia when I was in a high anxious state later on in life. So yeah, that's just giving you another angle to it as well. But that doesn't mean everyone needs to go back to the childhood.
No, but we have learned to be the way that we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you working with clients yet yourself with their mind?
I'm not really, just basic stuff. That's why I want to, when I become certified in I want to do it, you see, but because I've not yet become certified in NLP or something that's at least got, or hypnosis, something that's got at least accreditation behind it. Not being able to do anything because I've not wanted to lead anyone down the wrong path. I mean, I feel like I know quite a lot about it, but I just need some key hardcore studied strategies that I can start applying with people, really.
Got it. Because the reason being is that I've been really impressed with what you're saying. You're already ahead of a lot of your peers, and the clients are going to work with you in the future are going to be really lucky. You've got the personal experience to talk from, but you're also getting the technical, the theory, and you're also, I just think you're going to get it so right. Congratulations. Well done, mate. You've got a good future.
Cheers, pal.
Right, boys, I'm going to wrap up the show, but I'm actually going to ask Gary, are you up for doing a part 2 of this show?
Of course.
Because I think there's other stuff that I want to go down, and I've actually got some questions that I didn't get to ask today, but I'm well aware that this show's already over an hour, so I'm going to wrap up so far. Will, thank you very much for being on the show and being open and honest and sharing your story with people.
Yeah, no worries, Ben. Thanks a lot for having me on, and keep up the good work, buddy.
I will. And Gary, thank you. Gary, if people want to find your work, touch base with you, are there some resources, some websites that are good to kind of find you on?
Yes, for sure. I mean, my website is garyturner.co.uk. I suppose it's okay to plug my book.
Yeah, you go, brother.
I've got a book on anxiety called No Worries that you can find on Kindle and paperback on Amazon. It's got some quite good reviews, and I didn't even hypnotise people to write those reviews, which is quite good. What we've basically got is we've got a chapter that explains what anxiety is. Then we've got a chapter that explains how we go about change. And then we go through the anxiety clearing technique, which is a little system of 9 steps to go through to help people really clear their own anxiety. There's 21 little powerful psychological interventions for people to go through. In other words, it's a self-help book for anxiety, but it basically replicates what I do in sessions with clients. So a lot of people find that a lot of use, I feel. It's quite cheap, and it's cheaper than coming and seeing me. So yeah, No Worries on Amazon, or contact me, Gary at garyturner.co.uk, and I'm always here for questions anyway.
Oh, that's awesome. I had no idea you had written a book. There's another resource, and I'll make sure I post that when we make this show go live. And Will, I should probably really ask, is there anything that do you have a website or anything if people want to get in touch with you, especially if someone has kind of really resonated with your story and wants to reach out?
The main thing that I've set up just lately is my Facebook page, which is Willpower, which is my little my slogan name, / fitness, fitness, health and lifestyle coaching. So on that Facebook page, I'm taking time just to talk a bit about how to be happier, a bit of fitness and nutrition stuff. So just a way of me starting to slowly evolve into the kind of helping people more with the mindset side of the industry, really. And I'm obviously there for support for anyone who wants to message me and wants to reach out about anything. So there will be a website and that coming soon, but I need to get more. Get the NLP and hypnosis behind me, and then I can really start working a bit online with that and with clients one-to-one. So,
okay, awesome. Well, boys, thank you very much again for being on the show. I think it's been really useful for people, and I hope this message goes far and wide. Everyone listening, thank you for being on the show with me. If you have a question for the next podcast with myself and Rachel, please do send me a message. It is bencoomber@gmail.com with the subject line podcast, and we will throw your question into the mix. If we've asked the question before, please don't repeat it, kind of expand it, give us lots of detail, give us some meat and bones to get stuck into. Who I'll have on the show next week, who knows? I haven't looked in the little love bank, who knows what's going on, but please do share this information with other people. There will be someone that you know that this information can help. Tag them to the post on Facebook, share the link with them, send them an email. Just reach out to someone and, give this show to someone else. Will, thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks a lot. Great to meet you, Will, and always good to talk with Ben.
Thank you, boys.
Likewise.
And for everyone that's listening, I will speak to you all soon. Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number, I think it's going to be 130 now. I'm going to be honest. This is the first show in the whole of all 130 episodes we've done now that I'm actually a little bit nervous.